So, hello and welcome back to the channel. Now, today I want to talk about the writing journey and I want to talk about a few books too. So, let's get right into it. When I was just starting out and all I had was a few paragraphs on a Word document, I had this fear, and I don't know, there's not a word for this fear, but I'm going to call it the fear of redundancy. I had this fear that what I wanted to create had already been made. I figured that I was not first up to bat. I figured that, it had to be like a book, maybe a comic book, maybe a webtoon, maybe like a TV show in a foreign market that I've never heard of, like somewhere. It had to be out there somewhere. And I was, worried that if I wrote this and finished it, that I would basically just be like plagiarizing and there'd be like no point of me even releasing it. So that's why I started looking at book reviews and book discussions because I was hoping to find it. I wanted to hopefully find that book, whatever comic book, and just read it, have that be like my favorite thing ever, and then just sort of give up on this pipe dream of writing a book and being an author and whatever. That didn't happen, unfortunately. I wish it did because that would have saved me like a lot of money, would have saved me a lot of time. But oh well, fuck it, we ball. I didn't even know what the genre that I wanted to write in was, to be honest with you. I learned it was an urban fantasy. So I started reading a bunch of urban fantasy crime dramas because that was the genre I was trying to write, just to get either inspiration, know what was out there, or avoid copying someone else. So I'm going to talk about a few books. Now, these are not going to be dedicated reviews. It's just like a brief overview of my opinions from this urban fantasy crime drama binge that I went on for some time. So I read two books by Charles Stross. Now, the first one was Atrocity Archives. So this is about a guy who works for a government agency that is in charge of sort of keeping track and keeping hold and control over these sort of like Lovecraftian kind of fantasy horror deities and beings and all that stuff. I thought this was really cool. It's kind of like if Inside Job were taken a little bit more seriously. That's how I saw it. So what I love about this book is that it sort of injects these fantasy elements into these real life historical events, buildings, agencies, and shows you how they would play out and be used in this sort of urban fantasy context. Now, I didn't finish this book, and it's not for a lack of enjoyment. It was just like so different than what I wanted to make that I didn't really want to keep reading it at that time. The second book that I read by Charles Stross was called The Family Trade. It's in the Merchant Princess series. Now, this is about a woman who works for a newspaper, and she uncovers some sketchy dealings about the company that owns the newspaper, and she reports this to her boss, and she is immediately fired. Now, I thought this was going to be a lot bigger in the story in the book, but it really wasn't. It was kind of like not even mentioned until like a couple hundred pages later, but whatever. So she accidentally teleports into this like random place and she doesn't know what's happening, but she discovers that her father's side of the family have this ability to live in and teleport back and forth into this sort of like isekai, other dimension, other world kind of thing. So she goes to this other world and she meets her father's extended family, and they're kind of like stuck in Victorian times in terms of their technology, in terms of their culture and their norms. It's very like misogynistic, and the people that live there are all rich, so the women kind of just sit around and wear fancy dresses and go to balls and whatever. Um, Honestly, not a whole lot happens in this book. She meets her cousin, and then they start hooking up and stuff. And then one of the family members finds out about this and tries to like use it to blackmail them. And then the book ends. Like I'm really not leaving a whole lot of it out. Like not it's pretty boring. I didn't really like this. I'm going to be for real. Also, spoilers for a book that came out 20 years ago. I'll leave a timestamp to skip to if you don't want to like hear that. The family secret for their trade is that they use this power to teleport to traffic drugs, for like cartels, I guess, and in whatever the fuck, which is kind of cool. I think it's kind of an underwhelming thing because, like, imagine what you could use that power for. I wouldn't just use, I mean, you could do a lot more than just traffic drugs. Like, imagine using that in war to try to get like supplies and shit to one, part of the world to another. I mean, anyway, whatever. I wouldn't really recommend this series, and there's a lot to it. I think the last book in this series came out in 2017, 2018. So these are not short books, and these have been going on for a long time. I just don't really see that keeping my attention for like that many. Like there was kind of a lot of filler. Whatever. I'm kind of done talking about that. I also read Poison City by Paul Crilly. Now, this follows a guy who works for an agency that is in charge of controlling Orishas. Now, Orisha is a umbrella term for any kind of like monster, angel, demon, god, like whatever. All that falls under the same umbrella. Some are more sinister than others. So this book is kind of corny, a little cheesy at times. Um, it does have a very like stereotypical main character who's a sort of like ex cop alcoholic archetype who wants revenge for his daughter that was killed like years ago. But it is enjoyable. It does the crime drama part a lot better than most books. So it follows him kind of uncovering this plot that involves like elites and government and all that stuff. I don't want to spoil anything too deep about it, but it does work. There is betrayal and everything. Like it does feel it's cool. What I love most about this book is that the fantasy elements, like the magic that they use, actually feels very dangerous to possess. So his boss eventually tells him that her organs are kind of time traveling at random. So like her liver is the liver of like a 4 year old, her heart is the heart of like a 100 year old. So it eventually this magic is going to kill her, and it's going to probably do the same thing for him. So I thought that was really interesting. What I also really loved about this book is that it sort of deconstructs Western religion in a similar vein as like American Gods or like Percy Jackson, something like that. I don't think it mocks Christianity or Catholicism or their views or any way. I'm not really religious, but I thought it was very tasteful. It makes you think. It really does make you think, and it's not inaccurate to the way that like an actual biblical God and biblical angels behaved or would behave. I think you should check it out. I really liked it. Um, I think it's solid. Now, the last book I read was Jade City, and I'm not going to go on forever because this is a pretty popular book. So this follows a crime family in a fictitious Asian island. And on this island, the jade is enriched. So if you touch it and use it and wear it, you can give you like these crazy, awesome physical abilities. But when you let it go and stop wearing it, you can have these crazy withdrawals. So this story follows this next generation of this mafia family who uses this jade as like a weapon. And they're at war with an opposing clan. Overall, I enjoyed this book. It is a really good fantasy story. I just don't think it's like that good of a crime drama. The crime drama parts of it really let me down in the way that like I never felt like there was much of a looming danger. I felt like a lot of people had plot armor until they just didn't. I think my favorite part of it was their cousin, I think their adopted brother actually, Aden and his mom. Like I wish they made an entire book about the Mad Witch because she was my favorite part of it. She was my favorite piece of the lore. The rest of them I thought were kind of whatever. The ending was a huge Deus Ex Machina, and the actions of one character in particular, I'm not going to spoil anything, just betrayed his characterization. Like there's no way around it. Like it more so sounded like the author was trying to speak a plot point through a character. Like it did not make sense for what he was portrayed to be competent at. So that kind of really bothered me. I'm not really in the mood to read the rest of the series because like I feel like I can see where this plot is going from a mile away. Um so yeah, I'm probably not going to read the rest of that, but I don't know. It is a cool concept. So if you have any other like crime drama recommendations for me, like leave them in the comments because I will get back on this kick. If I'm gonna like rate them, I think Poison City, I think its sequel I'm most likely to read. Next, I would put Atrocity Archives because it is really cool. I'm gonna be honest, like Charles Stross, like his writing can be kind of boring sometimes. There's like long stretches where like a lot doesn't really happen. But Atrocity Archives from beat to beat of lore was really cool. And then I would put Jade City like third. It's I don't know. I'm not really too excited for it. And then Merchant Princess, Family Trade last because I think if you like really like things like Akatar, Cruel Prince, that might be up your alley because it's a similar isekai kind of concept. But like, holy fuck, it's so fucking boring. It's really boring. Anyway, that's kind of it. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, maybe. Like it, maybe. Comment, maybe.